Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm very pleased to see all of you here in this fantastic hall today. This session is about cloud and integration, so I hope you're in the right session, and I really hope you're going to engage with us and make this really productive. We've got a really diverse audience with us today, and I really hope that in looking at some of the questions we'll get to shortly, you might learn from each of us different perspectives, because cloud and the way people look at cloud, the way we use cloud and integrate into cloud, it means many different things to different people. And as Doug was just saying in the previous session, the way in which we adopt cloud and the way we embrace it to generate new business models and so on, it's really key to being able to move up that level between purely optimizing through to innovation to being a real true disruptor. So when we look at the questions that we're going to get to shortly, I really hope that you might look at those and try and think in an innovative way as well. Cloud is one of those things that people often have preconceptions about what cloud is to them, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think also it's important to look at how you might look at cloud differently, perhaps, when you exit this session, and indeed this whole forum today. There's certainly been some very interesting discussions so far, and some very interesting viewpoints. So this was the title of the session, and I thought I'd put it up because it's actually raising some interesting questions, I would think, looking at this. When you think about integration at any level, being at the application level, data, infrastructure, services, and more likely cloud services, it generates a lot of thought processes when we think about the issues that we think of in terms of how do we integrate into those things. Integration by itself is nothing new. You know, there's probably a lot of people here from a very technical background, I'm sure. Maybe people from a more business-orientated background. But integration by itself is not new. What is new, though, is that the way people are consuming these services in different ways now, mainly, of course, cloud. And cloud in itself is presenting, as we all know, new opportunities, new business models, new ways of consuming things more rapidly, with that classic agility that cloud promises. And that's great, absolutely fantastic. But from an integration perspective, that is generating new challenges. And those sorts of challenges are through because we're actually looking at consuming services in different ways now than what we were originally used to. You know, when you think of the traditional IT environment, doing integration between application A and B was generally an in-house activity. And what we're looking at now is changing that whole model from in-house to actually looking at how can we integrate from different providers to try and generate and build an integrated service that we can offer to our customers. And that in itself isn't always as easy as it first appears. And when we're thinking about the whole model of cloud in terms of that aspects of agility, integration can be a big challenge to that, in my view, because of the speed to doing it. You know, people want things now. You know, when they look at cloud, they think we can snap our fingers and that service should be available to be using for their customers as quickly as possible. But, and this is the big but, how can you offer a service that really delivers that value if you're not able to deliver it in a compelling way? So when we think about some of the examples of services that are out there on the internet right now, Salesforce.com, for example, a great service. It's there, you consume it, you pick it up, it works, fantastic. But then you think about, well, I've got my legacy ERP system still. I don't want to move the whole lot across to Salesforce.com in one go. I want to have some sort of synergy between what I've invested in already to what's out there in Salesforce. How am I going to actually do that? And this is where, of course, the whole element of integration comes in. So I hope that gives you some feeling about some of the aspects of integration. I think the other thing around integration as well is that it's not just in the sort of data synchronization sort of side of things. There's so many other aspects to integration that we need to think about. So what about, for example, monitoring things? So you're providing a service that perhaps might be delivered across different providers to deliver a integrated solution to your customers. But how do you know that each of those components are performing the way you want them to? These are really important elements because a lot of customer perception is based on, quite rightly, the service they touch and feel at the end of the day. Whether or not that's the user interface design or actually the responsiveness of the service. These all are really compelling elements that drive customer satisfaction. And one of the things Doug was asking in the previous session was around the barriers. And one of the barriers, I think, is that there's this perception with cloud that it needs to be responsive. Not just in terms of turnaround time to actually turning on the service and using it, but in terms of the way people consume that service as well. So we need to really open our minds a bit about what we mean by integration. What about things around fault tolerance, for example, disaster recovery, delivering the service from multiple regions as well, data security as well, so that we're making sure that data doesn't go outside certain geographic boundaries. These are all elements that are starting to rear its head when we think about cloud. So that's my sort of brief introduction. I'm not proposing to present lots of slides, although I do have a few. I'm really hoping that we'll get some interaction as we go through this. So just to extend things a little bit further, when we look at clouds. Now, I probably don't need to educate you about the different cloud models that's on this diagram here, i.e. public cloud at the top, some maybe private cloud working in the enterprise below. Well, what I'm really looking at here is the actual integration types that can often happen at the high level. So at the top there we've got the public clouds, and here in the middle, between those two blue clouds, we're showing that we're going to have perhaps some integration going off between those two public cloud offerings, for example. Likewise, in the bottom there, we might be looking at integrating some capabilities between public and private cloud. And then within those clouds, we've also got a bunch of services, compute services, database services. These are all infrastructure application type services. We have to also think about those other services that go side by side. So I'm thinking about service governance, for example, not just in the monitoring sense, but in terms of how do we actually manage that infrastructure that's out there. These are all key elements. How do we ensure we're meeting our SLAs? And that's not, as I said before on the previous slide, that's not unique to just a private in cloud. It's also relevant to a public cloud as well, to deliver that service in a consistent and professional way that our customers ordinarily are expecting, and probably are more savvy than ever now in that respect. I think the other thing also is when we look at the cloud types themselves. So we're generally seeing at the moment in this sort of story of cloud, two key models. One is obviously the public cloud, and we're very aware of the public cloud type capabilities. If you ask some people, they would say cloud is VMware, as one person said earlier on, but probably also Amazon and Google, and maybe even Microsoft's Azure cloud as well. But we know, hopefully, that that's not only cloud, is it? There's a lot more to public cloud than those types of services. I think the other side of it is that there's also an increasing drive of recognition that private cloud has a real need in delivering capabilities to customers. And why do we need private cloud? We need private cloud because it delivers things that don't necessarily allow us to be delivered in the public cloud. I'm talking about retaining data inside your firewall to meet certain compliances. I also mean certain performance requirements means you have to run it inside your environment. It might also be to do with really leveraging existing investments you made, making those investments work much more harder. So there's the private cloud. But in the middle there, we've got hybrid cloud. This concept of not sitting in the public cloud only or sitting in the private cloud only, but actually having a combination of. And I think this whole element is where we're going in the future. We're not necessarily going to sit in one camp, either public or private. My view is that we're going to be moving increasingly as time goes by into this sort of hybrid environment. I would like to ask anybody out there whether or not anybody agrees with what I've just said about that general progression between public, private, into the sort of hybrid environment. Does anybody have any views on that? I'm standing on the stage. I should maybe get down a bit, but does anybody have any views at the moment? Is anybody actually using cloud at all in your own services? It's probably a good starting point. I hope you might be, given the fact that you're sitting in this session. Hands up if you're using cloud at the moment. Not many, actually. Interesting. Okay, fine. I'll move on to the next slide. This is an interesting slide. So we've looked at the different cloud models, the need for integration. We're just diving a little bit deeper into those patterns of integration, the way in which you might do integration, just trying to get a little bit more detail about what we mean by that. So here I've got 3 very simple examples. These are not the only patterns, I hasten to add. There are many different ways of doing cloud integration. I think the first one is probably the obvious one. This is where we've got our existing legacy applications, and as I was saying earlier, how do we then start integrating those into capabilities delivered from other clouds, be it public clouds or even other private clouds that's specific to your requirements. So that's one classic pattern, a way of doing something. I think the middle one also is a classical one as well. This whole idea of synchronization. I gave the example before about Salesforce. You know, a good example is that you've got your SAP system, you've got your Salesforce.com system. You want to seamlessly migrate data between one and the other and keep them synchronized. This is a classic example of integration. The last one is actually the one where I feel there's actually a real drive at the moment. And that is, it says mashup. So this is where we're actually merging stuff together to create a seamless service for your customers. So a good example of this is maybe a telco provider. They've got their self-service portal. Do telco providers provide all the applications for their mobile phone customers? No, they're not generally a fully fledged mobile application developer. But yet they want to offer those services to their customers. So how do they do that in a simplistic way from an end user perspective? The mashup is the way of doing that. So they're going to offer through that same user interface services that actually happen to be provided from other cloud providers and cloud service providers. So it could be in the the telco case, mobile applications, for example. That in itself is a really strong proposition to customers. And the reason why is that it delivers simplicity. You think of the App Store on iPhone, iTunes, the Android market. One of the great reasons why those components are really, they really benefit their customers is because simplicity is there. It's really easy. Can you imagine doing that 10 years ago? Wow, it's almost science fiction, but now people take it for granted. And customers expect that same simplicity when delivering services across different capabilities through that same easy-to-use user interface. I think when we look at that, we can start to get an idea about where integration can apply itself in a more practical way across cloud types. I think the mashup element also is interesting in the sense that the way internet services have developed recently as well, Twitter and so on, this whole idea of having some awareness of what's going out there as well is also key. So cloud integration allows that awareness to be replicated through to the end user service. So whether that's representing stuff through Twitter, through your accounts, or down to being aware of how much data your customers are backing up onto a certain backup cloud service that you're providing. Having some of that awareness is feeding back is absolutely crucial. And again, these sorts of elements allow that to happen. So on this slide, we've got another way of looking at this from a layers perspective. We've got infrastructure at the bottom, platforms, and then applications. And the thing here you'll notice is that there is IBM on those different areas there, but other providers as well. The point here is that it's unlikely that one provider is going to provide an entire ecosystem for you to use. More likely, you're going to have to work, or will need to work, with many different providers. And the reason why for that is that it's going to give you, hopefully, the right combination, the right mix to differentiate yourselves to your competitors. And this is a really compelling point, this is it says at the top there, it presents integration challenges, but also the opportunities. The opportunity is for you to differentiate yourselves by hopefully looking at what's out there, looking at how you can integrate those elements together to give you that unique mix. That's going to make your customers look out to you and think, yeah, this provider is delivering something that really means something to me. It really fits my requirements. It gives you that agility and flexibility. So one example would be maybe at the platforms level. Okay, so there's some names in there, but let's give that an example. Let's think about the way cloud is seen. One of the attributes of cloud is, of course, around standardization. We all know about standardization. But one of the other aspects of cloud is virtualization. We all know about virtualization, I hope. Virtualization technologies, there isn't just one. There's many different virtualization technologies, hypervisors. And what we're often seeing is customers that need to adopt more than one hypervisor for cost reasons. They may use an open source version for their development activities. They may use a commercial version for their production level activities. But either way, there's different technologies going off there. And one of the real challenges that we often see customers look at or feel is around this whole aspect of how can they manage and have some visibility into those different platforms in a cohesive way. So rather than managing one set of technology and then another, it's managing everything seamlessly. What integration capabilities are important to MSPs? Does anybody have any views on that? There's more than one type of MSP out there. You know, we've got MSPs that look at hosted infrastructure, monitoring, security, software as a service. There's many different types of MSPs. So I think I said at the very beginning, it's going to mean different things to different people. But I'd be really interested to know if there's certain integration capabilities that mean something specifically to you. Does anybody have any views?
So I'm not really going to answer your question, but ask another one if I may.
Sure.
From a personal perspective, it strikes me that with the customers I work with, consumerization is kind of a key area that customers are talking about, how they consume cloud kind of services. And when I look at how I use very local cloud services to me, whether it be a Dropbox or a Evernote, it's actually the integration that entices me to use the technology, not the technology itself. And so, taking that a step further from how I consume cloud services, if we put that into a business context, I guess what I'm interested in people on the floor is, in a business context, what are the key integration things that would entice customers and clients into the environment? You know, so what do we need to do together to find better ways, and what is it that's stopping us integrate things that causes customers to join that environment? So really, I think it's a question out to customers and MSPs and IBMers in the room that, you know, what is it we need to focus on, and what is it we need to do?
Thanks for that. Any views? It's a really good point of not looking at things from only an IT perspective. It's that balance between IT and business requirements.
And I've been working with Salesforce.com and Sugar CRM and other players for about 6 years. And I think you're going to see a pattern go on that we've been seeing all over the world, which is the front office is moving faster than the back office to the cloud. And if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense because the front office is very mobile. And so the front office is demanding that I have flexibility on devices and things. And so what I would encourage everybody here to think about is what business processes can you start to offer and become a business process expert on front office types of things. The reason why Salesforce and Sugar and some of these folks in sales automation is first is because the sales organization is demanding that flexibility and being in the cloud because they're very mobile. But marketing is coming right behind that. And the integration problem between marketing and sales is a natural integration. How am I going to get the leads and the contacts from the website into the SFA system, right? And if I have marketing on premise and I have Salesforce in the cloud or Sugar, how do I get them between those two systems? Okay, once I have a lead, I've got an opportunity. How do I get the opportunities into orders? Well, that's in the finance system, right? I got to put it back into SAP or something like that. So start thinking business process about what problems and what data has to jump between systems. And remember that the front office is moving faster, so that back office and the transactions are not moving as fast, but that front office is moving very quickly. And so look for those opportunities to become an application expert. If you set yourself in the middle of this customer opportunity management process, you're going to be right in the middle of a lot of integration projects and probably become very important to your customers over time.
Great, thank you. Any comments from that?
You have 10 different systems. One is Salesforce, one Sugar CRM, one finance system, one SAP ERP. Sorry. Maybe you can run an integration strategy around that. So if you want to adopt Enterprise Service Bus, you have integration strategy with Enterprise Service Bus and put that Enterprise Service Bus in the cloud. Right. So your integration efforts later on would actually be minimized. That would definitely resolve a lot of issues from development and maintenance point of view. So that is one thing. Second opportunity that I would feel that I see is building connectors. For example, let's take an example of you implement Portal XYZ and you have social collaboration and other aspects on that portal. Now this portal is in cloud and it is offered as a service. So today you bring a new product in your company which is ERP. Okay, you have rolled out ERP. Now you want your cloud-based application to integrate with this. Now if you keep on building these connectors and offer these connectors to market that I already have these connectors built in. So instead of building new connectors which is going to take you 2-3 months every time, why don't I offer that as a service? So I think this point number 6, question 6, that could come as integration as a service. That I already have these connectors built in which can be offered.
It may be simple to think of MSPs just providing traditional services, be it backup or security services of some sort, but actually there is always the opportunity for MSPs to provide actually an integration as a service on the grounds of what's just been articulated. There are real opportunities in that area because, as I was saying, the diversity of cloud services that's coming out and also the differences between those services and how you actually bring those together. So for me, I see a real opportunity in that space. And particularly, like you're saying, where you've got adapters that's been pre-built to it, speed up that whole element there. So yeah, absolutely. There's other elements as well. So maybe we could move on to the question 3 there, which is other areas for consideration. I did mention at the very beginning around governance. I really feel that looking beyond the sort of application and data side of things is a really significant driver. So this whole element of looking at service levels, for example, security is obviously a one that gets a lot of attention these days. But actually looking at the network side of things as well, these elements are crucial in terms of delivering a service that meets your customers' expectations. if you look at network, for example, with network, there's certain dependencies there that's going to give you that agility to provision capabilities rapidly. And I think in the last session, somebody actually said that network is actually the cloud. It's the applications and services you lay on top of that makes it into something that you can consume easily. The point there is that getting those sorts of attributes built into the DNA, if you want to call it that, are critical in terms of allowing you to flex and increase your capacity and your agility over time by actually having it there as one of those sort of foundation components. So I wasn't sure whether or not Nick might have any comments on that.
Yeah, just picking up on the point of governance, really. We did some work with a UK financial institution, and one of the challenges that the IT department faced was we've got end-user departments going out and buying cloud services from external cloud vendors. And this is giving us two problems. First of all, we don't have the right governance around the data, the corporate data. And secondly, at the end of the quarter, we're getting hit with a big bill that we're not expecting for usage that we're unable to track. So one of the things we're able to do is to put in place a consistent business process whereby within their service catalogue, they were able to choose from both internal services and external cloud providing services from Amazon, from IBM, and have all that come through one single portal presented in a consistent way so that they're able to track the governance, track the usage, manage the cost. And that turned out to be a great story. So that's another area of integration across multiple delivery mechanisms.
A few things I'd like to just finish off with. First thing is that I really want to extend our invitation to you to reach out to us. This is a joint thing. It's not an IBM only thing. We really want to engage with you and go through this process with you of really understanding how we can help you. The second thing is that we've got some great materials out there on the IBM.com website, ibm.com/cloud. There's some great white papers out there, so I really would encourage you to have a look at that. There are some papers around here as well outside. There's some IBM stands, so have a look around there as well. The IBM team obviously is here for the rest of the day, so if you want to have a talk with us, we're very pleased to do that. Thank you.